So imagine for a second that someone steals your entire life savings,
Oh, wow. Okay.
right? I mean, every single penny you've worked for, just gone. Your natural human instinct, the instinct that society entirely validates, by the way, is to want that person caught.
Oh, absolutely. Caught, punished, maybe even completely ruined.
Exactly. It's about justice, you
Okay.
know. But what if the only way to reach a state of true, ultimate liberation is to look at that thief and genuinely, from the absolute bottom of your heart, just wish them good luck?
I mean, it's a profoundly jarring thought experiment. It completely short circuits our standard operating system.
Yeah, it really does.
We are just so deeply wired to seek fairness, to protect what is ours, that the idea of responding to a massive betrayal with genuine indifference or even compassion, it feels almost offensive to the modern mind.
It feels wrong.
Ugh.
And yet, that exact psychological pivot is the core requirement of the philosophy we are diving into today. So, welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring a really intense 2023 text by an author named So Feng.
Right, and it's titled Ascending from Human Nature to Celestial Nature.
Yeah. And the explicit mission here, for you, the listener, navigating this with us, is to map out what the author calls the sublimation of life quality.
Which, we should be clear, is not your standard self-improvement advice.
No, definitely not.
We aren't talking about, optimizing your morning routine or doing a bit more yoga.
Drinking a green smoothie.
Right, exactly. We are talking about fundamentally uninstalling what it means to be human and replacing it with something radically different, which is celestial nature.
Which requires a complete dismantling of our most ingrained assumptions about what actually makes a good person. It's an uncompromising framework.
It really is. It demands a level of internal exposure and psychological detachment that, frankly, most of us spend our entire lives successfully avoiding.
Absolutely avoiding. So before we get into the brutal stress tests this philosophy demands, and they are brutal, we have to understand the foundational concept it's built on.
The baseline, yeah.
Right. So early on, the text introduces this thing called the holographic theory of the universe. And it uses this beautiful poetic phrase, a grain of sand is a world, a single leaf is a Buddha's enlightenment.
It's a great line.
It is. But I want to make sure we actually grasp the mechanics of what that means for you and me. Like, how does a hologram explain human nature?
Okay, so think about a physical hologram. If you take a holographic plate, like a piece of glass, with a complex 3D image encoded onto it, and you shatter it with a hammer, you don't get 100 fragmented puzzle pieces of a picture.
Okay.
If you shine a laser through any single microscopic shard of that shattered glass, it will still project the entire complete 3D image.
Wait, really? The whole picture?
Yeah, exactly. The
Wait.
whole is contained in every single part.
Okay, that actually makes perfect sense. So applied to us.
Applied to us, it implies that we aren't just one static identity. Every single human being contains the entire spectrum of existence within them.
A whole spectrum.
Right. The author argues we have divinity, devil nature, Buddha nature, celestial nature, demon nature, human nature, ghost nature, and animal nature. All those frequencies are just, bundled up inside your specific shard of glass.
So it's like a cosmic multi-tool. We have all these different blades folded up inside us. But right now, humanity is just walking around with a human blade flipped out.
That is a perfect way to put it.
And the way this framework defines that human blade is, well, it's incredibly grim, but also painfully accurate.
Yeah, doesn't pull any punches at all. Human nature, in this view, is an operating system programmed almost entirely for selfish survival.
Right.
It's hyper-focused on the immediate present and just obsessively oriented around acquiring material wealth, power, status, and reputation.
Yeah, it explicitly says humans are constantly seeking to maximally obtain and possess resources. And it's not just talking about, like, money or land.
Yeah.
It means social resources, sexual resources, emotional leverage. Because our baseline programming is to hoard and guard these resources, we are locked in a perpetual state of jealousy, greed, anxiety, fear, and deceit.
Which naturally leads to harming others. I mean, the
Yeah.
author points out that when our own interests are threatened, humans will routinely ignore both the law and human emotion.
We just throw it all out the window.
Exactly. We lie, we speculate, we form conspiracies, and we're constantly comparing ourselves to the people around us.
Oh, the comparison trap.
It's huge. That comparison breeds arrogance when we feel like we are winning the rat race, and a crushing inferiority complex when we feel like we're losing.
I really wrestle with this characterization, though. I mean, it paints humanity as so inherently toxic.
It does sound harsh.
Right. So is the premise here that we are just a failed, malicious species? Or is it that we're just stuck operating in a really low, exhausting gear?
Okay, that is a crucial distinction. It's definitely the latter. This isn't just, mere moral finger wagging.
Like making us feel guilty.
Right. It's not trying to shame you into feeling bad about being human. Instead, it treats human nature as a very specific, necessary quality of life on a much broader evolutionary spectrum.
Okay, so it's just step one?
Exactly. It is the baseline. The human software is fundamentally a survival program. It is exhausting, anxious, and full of friction, yes. But it's the starting point from which this concept of sublimation ascending to a higher, lighter frequency actually begins.
So if human nature is an operating system running entirely on anxiety and resource hoarding, what happens when you completely uninstall that software? Like, what does celestial nature actually look like?
The contract is absolute. Where human nature is defined by anxious acquisition, celestial nature is defined by selflessness and total carefreeness.
Carefreeness. I like that word.
Yeah, a celestial being operates without worry, without hate, and without regret. Their valuation system is entirely flipped. Like spiritual and soul abundance completely overwrite the desire for material wealth.
And the practical application of this is where things get really radical. Like, the text says celestial beings take things as they are, only associating with others through naturally come-and-go relations.
Right, they don't force anything. They don't seek to control anyone.
But then it lists these absolute prohibitions. To possess celestial nature, you cannot possess any resources. You cannot establish any organizations or join any religions.
Not at all.
You cannot have any concept of nationality, country, or political party. And, maybe most shockingly, you cannot establish special relationships with anyone.
It culminates in this really fascinating paradox. They possess nothing, but they have everything, because they respect life and nature without feeling the slightest need to own or dominate any of it.
Okay, I have to stop you there and push back hard on this.
Sure.
For you, the listener, who is just trying to navigate everyday society, maybe you're married, maybe you have kids, a mortgage, a career, a community you care about.
Right, the reality of life.
Exactly. To be told you can't have a nationality, can't join an organization, and can't have special relationships, how does a normal person navigate that? Isn't this kind of existence totally isolating?
It sounds like it, yeah.
I mean, you'd be completely alienated from modern society.
You're absolutely right to push back on that, and it's exactly the friction the framework anticipates.
Yeah.
How do you function in the world if you literally refuse to claim a special relationship or own a bank account?
Right. How do you buy groceries?
The blunt answer is you don't, at least not in the world as it's currently structured.
So it's an impossible ask.
Within our current societal framework, yes. You cannot just drop all your attachments and refuse to participate in the resource game while still playing by the rules of a capitalist, nation-state-driven modern society.
Yeah, makes sense.
And that realization is exactly what leads to the author's most radical prerequisite for transformation. You can't just tweak your current life.
Right, you can't renovate the house, you have to demolish it. The text argues that to achieve this celestial ideal, you have to completely step out of what Schwiffing calls the traditional production and life mode.
You have to enter an entirely new one.
Because in the traditional mode, the one you, me, and the listener are operating in right now, possessing nothing doesn't make you enlightened. It just makes you starve to death on the street.
Exactly. The traditional system inherently requires ownership just to survive. You need to own money to buy food.
Yeah.
You need a legally recognized special relationship, like a lease or a deed, to have shelter. Therefore, any attempt to reach celestial nature while remaining entrenched in the traditional life mode is, according to this text, a complete delusion.
And this brings us to what I found to be the most challenging part of the whole text, the merit trap.
Oh, the merit trap is fascinating.
It really is. It lists out all these things that society universally praises as good deeds. Donating to charity, building temples or churches, inventing high-tech products that benefit humanity.
Saving lives, reading classical philosophy.
Yet all of that, and the text says all of that is utterly useless for true sublimation. I really struggled with this.
It's a tough pill to swallow.
If I donate half my salary to a food bank, you're telling me this framework views that as essentially a cosmetic upgrade. That feels incredibly dismissive of actual good in the world.
It does feel dismissive until you understand the strict distinction the author makes between accumulating merit and fundamentally changing your nature.
Okay, break that down for me.
Doing all those good deeds, charity, public service,
Yeah.
invention, absolutely accumulates merit and makes you a highly respected, very good human being.
Huh.
But you are still fundamentally operating the human software. You are just running a very altruistic program within it. It does not sublimate your nature into a celestial frequency.
Oh, I see. It's like trying to run a next-generation quantum AI on a 1990s dial-up modem.
That's exactly it.
You can't just plug a sleek new monitor into the
Ugh.
wall and expect the system to process data differently. You have to rip out the motherboard. The hardware itself has to change.
That's a perfect analogy. The text uses its own striking imagery for this. It says, trying to elevate your life quality while staying in the traditional mode is like trying to lift oneself into the sky by pulling one's own hair.
Which is just, it's a hilarious visual.
Right. That the physics simply don't work. And then, of course, there is the cabbage metaphor.
Yes, the cabbage. If you want to be a big cabbage, you must become a big cabbage. If you want to be the sun, you must become the sun.
Right. Simulation is not transformation.
Exactly. Giving to charity while still aggressively protecting your corporate career, your social status, or your bank account is just pretending to be the cabbage.
It exposes where a lot of modern surface-level self-improvement falls short. We want the spiritual, psychological rewards of total detachment, but we desperately want to keep the material comforts and security of our attachments.
We want to have our cake and eat it, too.
Exactly. And this framework argues that this is a mathematical impossibility.
But that brings up a huge logistical problem. These theories sound incredibly lofty. How do you actually know if you are fundamentally changing your hardware?
That's the real question, isn't it?
Right. How do you know if you are actually becoming the cabbage or just lying to yourself? Because the text grounds this lofty philosophy in some extremely brutal, highly specific stress tests.
We'll call some gradual efforts.
Yeah, and these tests are brilliantly designed to bypass your intellectual ego. They drill straight down into your involuntary visceral reactions to see what hardware is actually running.
So let's look at the material stress tests.
Let's do it.
The text asks you to imagine that you usually live in a beautiful, comfortable villa. One day, you are stripped of that and asked to move into a rudimentary straw hut.
Just a hut.
Right. Instead of your plush mattress, you have nothing but wheatgrass to sleep on. The author says if you feel uncomfortable, put upon, or unhappy about this downgrade, you are still operating on human nature.
But if you find it genuinely fun, interesting, and you are deeply happy, that proves you possess celestial nature.
And I really want to highlight the emotional requirement there. The requirement isn't stoicism.
It's not about toughing it out.
No, it's not about grimly clenching your jaw and enduring the straw hut to prove how spiritual you are. It is about genuinely finding it fun. Your baseline of joy has to remain completely uninterrupted by the loss of comfort.
Let's bring this directly to you, the listener. Think about your own bed tonight. Imagine giving up your pillows, your blankets, the temperature control in your room for damp wheatgrass in a drafty hut.
And not just for a weekend?
Right, not for a trendy weekend glamping retreat.
Yeah.
Forever. Could you actually find that fun? And the next test is even harder because it strips away chemical pleasure entirely.
Oh, the food test.
Yeah. Imagine going from eating high-end delicacies every day to suddenly surviving on plain boiled cabbage and potatoes with zero salt.
The lack of salt is the crucial detail here. It completely strips away all culinary pleasure, leaving only the absolute barest nutritional sustenance.
Right. Zero salt. None. You're stripping away the very chemical hit our brains are wired to crave. The text says if you find this unsalted potato hard to swallow, you are human.
But if you eat it with relish and profound gratitude, you are celestial.
I have to be honest, here's where it gets really interesting to me, because it is asking for a literal rewiring of our sensory pleasure.
Oh.
But how do we distinguish between genuine celestial gratitude and just, well, lying to ourselves to pass the test?
Like faking it.
Yeah, like closing my eyes and saying, yes, I love this wet, bland potato. I am so enlightened.
Well, that is the exact trap of perfect pretending the text warns against. You cannot intellectually force a wet potato to taste good.
No, you really can't.
This is about a fundamental shift in where your satisfaction is generated. If your nature is still human, it relies heavily on external conditions, like salt, a soft mattress, or social validation to dictate your internal state of joy. But if your nature is celestial, the joy is generated entirely internally. Because you no longer rely on external inputs to feel complete, those external circumstances, villa or hut, steak or unsalted potato, truly fundamentally lose their grip on you.
Okay, if pivoting away from physical comfort sounds incredibly difficult, that's just the warm-up. Let's pivot from the physical to something much more deeply entrenched. our emotional contracts, and our ego.
Oh, yeah, because the emotional and interpersonal stress tests in this text are where the real crucible lies.
Material attachments are one thing. You can learn to sleep on grass. But our emotional attachments, our deep-seated sense of justice, our pride, our personal relationships, those are wired into the absolute deepest parts of the human operating system.
Let's look at how the text attacks romantic and interpersonal possessiveness. The scenario is this. You discover that someone you really like, someone you are deeply attached to, is having sex with someone else of your same gender.
A classic betrayal scenario.
Exactly. The text points out that if you feel jealous, if you feel a sting of anger or betrayal, that is just your base human programming kicking in. But if you can sincerely, in your heart of hearts, bless them and genuinely feel joy for their happiness, then your nature is celestial.
And again, we run into the sincerity requirement.
Yes.
It's not about gritting your teeth, pretending to be incredibly evolved and polyamorous while secretly seething with insecurity. It requires true, unbothered joy for their experience, entirely devoid of the feeling that something has been taken from you.
Which perfectly sets up the scenario we opened the show with, the betrayal of a trusted friend.
Oh, right. The stolen life savings.
Let's say someone you have a great relationship with scams you out of everything you have. Our human brains absolutely hate this. Our entire society is built on social contracts and fairness.
If you break the contract, you should be punished.
Exactly. If you want to ruin that scammer or sue them or beat them up, you are human. But if you are entirely indifferent, or if you actually think, poor person, the devil will take them, I sincerely wish them luck in turning things around, then you are celestial.
This scenario is fascinating because it fundamentally breaks the human concept of justice.
It shatters it.
Right. The human operating system says that retaliation is not just natural, it is moral. Celestial nature views retaliation, or even the desire for fairness, as a heavy, dragging weight that keeps you tethered to a lower frequency.
It all traces back to ownership, doesn't it?
I actually just had an epiphany about this while we were talking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this whole philosophy, surrendering the ego, blessing the person who cheats on you, wishing luck to the person who steals from you, it's because human nature is inextricably tied to ownership.
That's the core of it.
We feel we own our money, so we are furious when it is stolen. We feel we own our romantic partners, or at least we own their fidelity, so we are jealous when they stray. Celestial nature is the total, absolute liberation from the very concept of ownership. When you fundamentally believe you own nothing, there is nothing to steal. There is nothing to be jealous over.
That is the exact psychological mechanism at play. That is how you achieve that state of being carefree that the author described earlier. You cannot be anxious if you have nothing to protect.
And this internal reality is so absolute that it even applies when nobody else is watching. There is another scenario here I call the secret fraud.
Ah, yes, the secret fraud.
Let's say someone trusts you unconditionally. And because they trust you so much, you secretly deceive them for your own benefit. The text is brutal about this. Even if no one in the entire world knows, even if the greatest creator doesn't know you betrayed that trust, you are a fraud.
Your quality of life absolutely will not enhance.
Because you know.
Exactly. And this brings us all the way back to the holographic theory of the universe we discussed at the beginning. Why does it matter if nobody knows? Because the universe is inside you.
Right, the shattered glass.
If you deceive someone, that deception exists within your specific shard of glass. It pollutes your own frequency. You cannot hide from yourself because your nature is the very environment you inhabit.
Which is also why the final emotional test, the flatterer, fails the celestial standard. If you flatter someone to their face to protect your own status or gain a benefit, acting obedient, but secretly in your head you are thinking, I really want to kick this guy in the shins, you prove you are deeply rooted in human nature.
Because you are operating out of self-preservation and deceit. What all these emotional tests share, from the unsalted potatoes to the cheating partner to the secret fraud, is the complete and utter dismantling of the ego's defense mechanisms.
It really synthesizes the entire mission of this deep dive. The sublimation of life quality actually moving the needle from human to celestial isn't about grand public gestures.
No, not at all.
It is not about accumulating merit points through highly visible charity work or showing the world how spiritual you are by quoting philosophy. It is measured in thousands of microscopic, intensely private details.
It's measured in the friction of your authentic, unfiltered reactions. When your ego is threatened, when your comfort is removed, and when your social contracts are shattered.
And as the author explicitly states, Perfect pretending is useless here.
Completely useless.
You cannot fool heaven, you cannot fool earth, and most importantly, you cannot fool your own internal holographic frequency. You either change the motherboard or you don't.
Which brings us to a final, pretty staggering thought to leave you with today. We've spent this entire time talking about the monumental, agonizing psychological leap required just to ascend from human nature to celestial nature.
Right.
But remember that evolutionary ladder the text mentioned at the very beginning?
Oh yeah, it doesn't stop at celestial.
It definitely doesn't.
The spectrum goes from animal to human to celestial and Buddha, and then finally reaches divinity.
Divinity.
So if the basic requirement for just reaching the celestial rung of the ladder means giving up all earthly possessions, refusing to claim special relationships, eating unsalted food with profound joy, and entirely abandoning the human concept of fairness, justice, and ego.
Which is already almost impossible.
Right. What unimaginable, mind-bending level of detachment must that final stage of divinity require?
It's a massive question. I mean, if celestial nature requires stepping outside the traditional mode of human life, divinity might require stepping outside of existence in any way we can currently conceptualize it.
It really proves that you don't just demolish the house to live in the open atmosphere. Eventually, you have to become the empty space itself.
That's a profound way to look at it.
It's definitely something for you to mull over the next time you find yourself getting irritated about someone cutting you off in traffic or, a plate of unsalted potatoes. Thanks for taking the plunge with us today.